Welcome to Demystifying Divinity with Joanna and Jenny.
Hi, this is Joanna. I channel messages from the Spirit in order to help people remember who they are and to embody their power.
Hi, I'm Jenny. I use intuitive astrology to help people remember their blueprints and soul contracts. And together, we're demystifying divinity, one conversation at a time.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Demystifying Divinity with Jenny and Joanna, where we help people like you become a little bit more empowered or a lot more empowered. So if you're into this sort of thing, if you'd like to feel more empowered and figure out how to do that, then you're in the right place. Hi, Jenny.
Hello, Joanna. How are you doing?
I am doing good. How are you?
Excellent. Excellent.
So as I was preparing with my team, they kind of threw an idea of a subject, which is literally disempowerment. So let's talk about disempowerment, because I feel like they've given me a recipe on how to deal with one's disempowerment so that we can consciously become more empowered. But let's just talk about the idea of disempowerment. I actually had to look up the meaning. What is disempowerment, right? What do you think disempowerment means? What does that mean to you?
First thing that immediately popped into my head is victim stories.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Holding on to them and retelling them, and then owning them, and then attaching to them, and then thinking that's your identity.
Exactly. So according to Google, one of the description is to be disempowered means to believe that we have no control over the outcome in our lives and that change must come externally, not from within. We become disempowered by giving up our autonomy to be and express our natural and authentic selves. I remember the days when I felt very disempowered. In fact, it was most of my life. And the word that you said, victim, I was a perpetual victim. I always want to say this, though. That is not to say that I wasn't victimized.
Right.
Most people have been. But it was the idea of me holding on to that victimization that made me feel like I was a perpetual victim. So naturally, I didn't feel safe because I felt like I had no control over my life. Things were happening to me. And that's a scary place to be when you don't know what's going to happen to you, right? Little did I know that I could make a profound change and not be a victim as long as I look into my shadows and heal whatever has been stored inside of me in terms of my experiences. So basically working through my shadows. So I can speak to the idea of disempowerment because I believe that that is my greatest lesson here to learn so that I can potentially help others. We can help others become more empowered. So I absolutely know what it's like to feel disempowered, but I also know what it likes to feel empowered. Do I still go to my disempowerment? Yes. Probably always will.
Yes.
But I don't swim there most of my time.
Yeah.
And I feel that many people, do you think that many people can identify with a disempowered state?
Indeed.
Yeah. And I feel that throughout lives, we will have moments where we feel disempowered. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the constant feeling of disempowerment where that's just who we think we are. And they actually said, I said, okay, so tell me more a little bit about this empowerment thing. And they said, basically, disempowerment means less than. And I thought about that and I thought, I think that's true. When I feel disempowered, I feel someone less powerful, less than. Right? Have you felt disempowered before? I'm sure you have.
I immediately go to the title of our podcast, Demystifying Divinity. And so the whole point of naming this podcast that is to talk about everyday things, because everyday things are spiritual. And so just taking the woo out of that and making it a common day conversation. So for instance, in high school, you feel disempowered if you're not the popular girl. Like that's a everyday example, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can really wallow in that victim story as well. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not skinny enough or whatever. I'm I'm less than so-and-so who is the popular girl. And apparently she is the ideal of what I should be. So we get it at different stages in our life. That one kind of stays around for a lot of women. No, but you feel less than her. You're always feeling less than her. So then you grow up, you go to university, you get a real job. And then you go in and then you feel less than the CEO because you're a mere assistant.
Right.
So these are the everyday things that we love talking about on this podcast. But it actually, what's the deeper thing? What is the spiritual thing there?
Yeah, and here's the irony of it all. We can't be without power because we are power, and that's it.
The end.
The end.
Podcast over.
Yeah, done. So one of the first things they said, because I said, okay, what do we do about this empowerment stuff? Because everyone will have their own story.
Yes.
And, as long as you live in your disempowered story, as long as you, as you said, as long as you identify with your disempowered story, then you will continually feel disempowered. But it does not mean that you are without power. In fact, that is the opposite of truth. It's how we
use go to the job and she's the CEO and I'm the mere assistant. How can we flip that script then, Joanna? Tell us.
Well, first thing that comes to me is drop the judgments. If you don't hold a judgment about yourself that you are less than, and just imagine going to work and you have a CEO, but you have no judgment that he or she is better than you.
And there's nothing wrong with being an assistant.
Just playing out different roles. That's it.
Right.
It's like saying to Apple, you're bad because you're not a cherry. Well, I'm supposed to be a cherry. Does that make sense?
Yeah, an assistant, you got the job because they needed an assistant, right?
Yeah.
And they also need a CEO. It's not, one's not better than the other, but we do categorize them, right?
Yeah. And because we humans are so fractured within ourselves, we actually don't think of ourselves as whole. We think we're missing something.
Right.
So any opportunity that we can grab on that says, oh, here, this is what I'm missing. It's a perpetual cycle of identifying with lack. So one of the first things they said is recognize the essence that is you, which is an eternal vibration, which is frequency, which is power. In other words, what they're saying, first and foremost, recognize that you cannot be without power. It's impossible. It's what do you do with your power? How do you wield your power?
Take the light to the role of assistant.
When you judge yourself as a lesser person than the CEO, then you are using your power to make you feel not so good.
Right.
That's how powerful you are.
I love that.
Right?
It reminds me of Nelson Mandela, right? Because he always said that he had a grand old time. He flipped the switch when he was in prison. And he became friends with everyone. And he was like inspiring everyone. And so, yeah, you could go to prison and you could hate your life. Or
it didn't break him. It made him stronger. Personally, I don't know if I would do as well.
Yeah.
But
I don't know.
So
I don't know. I like
someone can, and we can go to the extreme. Yes, someone can absolutely have physical power over you, but the power of your mind is very intact within you. It's like no one can tell you what to do and you do it unless you agree to it. Right? Now, well, what if I have to do it because I'm going to get hurt? Well, then you are agreeing to do that and you have your own reasons. You're still within the power of agreeing to that. It may not be what you want, but it's maybe what's necessary. You are agreeing to that because you don't want the other consequences. That's power. We often don't see it that way, do we?
Love that.
Yeah, that's a tough one to digest. The second one, recognize how you play a victim and ask yourself, am I really being a victim or did I contribute to this somehow?
Ooh.
That's very hard.
When you tell them that.
Yeah, that's a hard one because, again, if you were victimized when you were a child and you had no clue what the hell life is all about, then yeah, you felt very disempowered. But if you take that experience and identify yourself with that story, then you are playing into that story of creating a victimhood-like experiences. Does that make sense? Again, I really want to stress this. This does not mean that people have not been victimized. Yes, we all have been, but it's holding on to that story. Example, if you're in a relationship and it's obviously bad for you, and you know it's bad for you, but you're not leaving it for whatever reasons, you are contributing to your own victimhood because you're staying somewhere you don't want to be. So there must be some kind of a belief system that you can't have better, you don't deserve better, or somehow this is it. It's a story. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, we're not here to say there's no victims in this world.
Jesus, absolutely 100%.
Flipping the script of Survivor, right?
So I thought this point was it's a little bit again tough because no one wants to say, well, I am playing into this thing that I don't want. But actually, how many times do we do that without actually consciously knowing it? Right? And I feel like that's a very empowering. And when a person is ready to ask that question, I think they're in an empowered state. Because the moment they're able to ask themselves the question and really look at the truth is the moment that they realize, hey, I actually have power in this. I'm just choosing not to.
So you're saying when you own the moment that you've co-created this moment, you've co-created this experience. That moment of realizing you have co-created it, that is in fact an empowering moment.
Extremely empowering moment.
Yeah, I love that.
Because it also means and I've got chills all over me, if I have created this, I could equally create something else.
I love that. See, that's when you strip it down. That's what I love about these conversations, because you can philosophize the day away, but like we really like to strip it down and say, okay, what is the spiritual lesson? Life is happening to you or life is happening for you?
Yeah. And again, it's a tough one to digest because no ego wants to be responsible for the things that we don't like. Like ego is a funny thing. It's just it always wants to be right. It always wants to be perfect. It needs a lot of validation. But yeah, just recognizing how we co-create our experience is a profound thing. In fact, this is eventually what I begin to realize, that yes, I can keep blaming my parents for the life that I have right now, or I can say, well, it's my life now. I can choose to do different things. I just have to get out of my shadow stories. Right?
Yeah. And also soul contracts. I mean, I can't help but bring that up.
Of course.
Every day in my astrology work, because when I'm reading someone's chart, I'm like, okay, so you signed up for this, like before you came down onto the earth, you met with the spirit guides, you met with your team, and you said, I really want to learn A, B, C, and D, and so I'm going to pull in the soul family. And one of those lessons is going to be about, whatever it is, forgiveness. Mm-hmm. And that particular soul family is going to be the bad guy, and I'm going to be the good guy, and all that jazz. And you get so excited when you're up there because it's like, this is going to be fun. We're going to Earth together.
Yeah.
So I always say that, and I try and make it like animated when I'm trying to describe, oh, I see this in your birth chart, and this was an agreement you made, a soul contract, if you will. And I swear to God, every single time I do that whole spiel, everyone goes, yeah. Like one's, what do you mean? Everyone's like, no one has ever said to me that is a concept I've never even once considered. So there you go. I think we all know this. It's just the remembering. It's like, I don't exactly remember who's in the soul family. I don't exactly remember what I said I was going to do and not do. But it's that whole, oh yeah, that does resonate.
Yeah. And it's also, first of all, a person who is ready to feel more empowered would be listening to this. Someone who is not interested wouldn't be listening to this, because
true.
I feel like a big part of our conversation is to talk about things that can be put into practice. Because like you said, we can philosophize all day long, but if we don't put ideas into practice, then all we're going to do is we're going to have a cognitive awareness, but we're not going to have the experience.
Right.
Right. Number 3, this was interesting. Disregard other people's opinions of you if they are hurtful.
Ooh. Who told you that? You did? Your team?
Yeah. Disregard other people's opinion of you if they are hurtful. I thought it was interesting wording. In other words, don't accept everything you hear as gospel truth. Just because someone says you're incompetent doesn't mean you're competent. Maybe you are, or maybe that someone is angry and they just want to hurt your feelings. Right? Because we often identify what other people say about us, especially the hurtful things. Like even on YouTube, I get beautiful comments, but once in a while I'll get this comment that is like, what are you drinking? It's hurtful. So it's like, 0.5% of those hurtful comments. And then there is the beautiful comments. We tend to gravitate towards the hurtful, right? I think it's part of like the survival instinct. But yeah, disregard other people's opinions.
Disregard.
Isn't that interesting word?
Woo. Disregard.
Yeah.
Okay, what are you saying? I don't have to take on other people's opinions of me, Joanna? Is that what you're trying to say?
Is that what it means to you?
It means if someone says I'm a Miss So-and-so and fill in the blank there of a nice word or two. If someone has that opinion of me, are you saying that I do not myself have to take that on and then ruminate over hours and perhaps weeks and months over that? Is that what you're saying? I don't have to do that.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. Okay.
And what I'm getting is, I feel like there's more that wants to come out of this.
Yes.
You can choose to not own what someone says about you. You can choose to do that, or you can choose to give it credence. So if someone says you're incompetent, as an example, look at your life and acknowledge all the competencies, because if you were not a competency person, you'd be dead by now.
Okay.
Now, may this person be saying that you're not competent in a certain area? Then it's worth looking at. Maybe you're not. Maybe because it's not your thing. Maybe because you want to get better. But it doesn't mean anything less about you. See, we make that comment and make it mean something less about ourselves. Does that make sense?
I love it. I mean, disregard, though. I love that.
I know that disregard.
Like, disregard. I'm like, oh, hey, you're telling me I have the permission to disregard all that negativity that I have perhaps taken on as my own, but it was never mine. It was theirs. It was their projection.
It's not only do you have permission, you don't fucking need a permission from anybody. That's the thing.
Thank you. That's what you meant. No, I was clarifying what you meant by disregard.
Yeah, but that's what they mean. Does that make sense though to you?
I know, I love it. I mean, I know these things. You read all books. Yeah, I know. Like
it's easier said than done. It's easier said than done.
Right. You know, but it's like living it sometimes. Some do take on the opinions.
Yeah. For example, I'm getting another example. Let's say someone says to me, I'm an asshole. Well, I can take that statement and go, oh my God, I'm an asshole. And I can just, get lost in it. Or I can go, okay, that was hurtful. Okay, hang on one second. Let me check with myself. Was I being an asshole? So if I'm being an asshole, it's like, okay, they called me out. Okay, I take it. Or, no, I'm not. I'm just being myself. Maybe the person was mad. Or do you see the difference? I don't take it on. I'm like, okay, is it true? There's a neutrality. Now, it's easier said than done because we're so used to taking on other people's opinions. It's part of our survival. Mom and dad said something, and that was a survival thing for us.
Yes.
Right? Which brings me to another point. Don't question your authority as much. Maybe question the outside authority.
Outside. Who's the outside?
Outside. Anything you give authority to. That whole thing about authority. So let's just expand on that a little bit. What does it mean? What does it mean to you to be in your own authority? What does that mean to you?
It's like in my own power, to be empowered.
You trust yourself.
Yes.
So someone who calls me an asshole, I either trust their authority or I trust my own authority. It's about giving ourselves permission to be okay with who we are. Giving ourselves permission to be okay with who we are. And most people are at odds with themselves. That's the shadow, all the shadowland, right? So to me, to be in my own authority, the basic thing I want to say right off the bat, it feels pretty darn good.
Yes.
It doesn't mean like, no, it just means I'm good, man. Like, I'm totally good. I'm good.
You know where I get caught up the most? Maybe you're the same. Tell me. Like, I hear you, like I'm out at the grocery store, it's a perfect stranger, someone in the car calls me a name or something, and it might like jar me 30 minutes, maybe, and then I sincerely do get over it. But like, if it's family or a friend, like I might ruminate for a little bit too long. I might be a little bit long on that.
Yeah.
Even though I know it's not me. And then I just keep thinking, what if it was me? What if I'm the a-hole?
Yeah, because it's like, especially with family, we all want to be accepted.
Yeah, that's what it is, right? Like, thank you for stripping that down. That's what it is.
We all want to be accepted.
Yeah.
And I feel strongly that to be in your own authority means very much being in your own self-acceptance.
So just accept yourself.
Wholly and completely.
That's all you got to do. At the end,
and completely.
You got to love yourself more than anyone loves you. You got to be yourself.
So for example, let's take the asshole example. If I recognize that there is an asshole in me, there's no point in trying to pretend that it's not. I have an asshole part on me with me. Okay, I'll accept that. I'm not going to play with it very much, but it's a part of me. Can I be an asshole? Absolutely. Because we tend to vilify the parts about ourselves that we don't like, or we think that other people don't like about us. For example, I don't know why this is coming to me, but I see an exuberant child growing up, and some authority figure, usually mother, father, school teacher, says, "You're too loud." And they say that few times, and the child begins to think, okay, I'm too loud. I can't be who I am, right? And they kind of fold within. So they grow up with the idea that they can't fully be themselves because that somehow is not enough. So they have to become somebody else. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Get small.
Sorry. Number 4, release self-doubt. Acknowledge judgments you hold about yourself that negatively impact you. Once you do that, stop judging yourself harshly and give yourself permission to make mistake and learn from it, and see mistakes as opportunities to grow and evolve. Be proud of how you have grown and evolved. So this is recognizing the good qualities about ourselves rather than constantly focusing on the lack or that which we perceive we're not. Because I feel that I actually just literally had a client just before we hopped on, and her entire life she has identified with herself as not enough, right? So she shows up in the world as someone who believes she's not enough. So what does she do? She hides, or she tries to overdo things in order to prove her worth and her value to be loved. So she's in constant fear of not being loved, right?
Yes.
And the recipe they gave for her was to literally write out all the things that she is proud of and that she feels good about herself, and just keep looking at that list over and over again and say, this is me, this is me. Start identifying with the good aspects, because everyone has them. Everyone has dark and light, right? It's not about denying the dark, but it's not focused dark. It's not about denying the negative, let's use that word. It's about being in acceptance more of the positive, because when we identify with the negative, we identify with lack, and that's very disempowering. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it brings me back to, I don't know which number podcast it was, but when we were talking about God, and you said, if you can imagine a God like a loving grandfather that just loves you so much and wants to just cuddle you because you're just the greatest thing since sliced bread, and they just love you so much. Reminds me of that. It's like, oh, could we love ourselves like that?
Yeah, you can literally do no wrong. However, to our human being standards, it doesn't mean that you should be walking around and being an asshole because we're saying you could do no wrong. No, you still live in human experience. There are certain rules so that the society runs. I mean, each person, I believe, at the very depth of who they are, knows the difference between right and wrong. I believe that every human has that. If you're doing something wrong, but you're like, no, it's right, but you usually can feel it. Sometimes you don't think you're doing something wrong, but so that there's a lesson. But it's like, does that make sense what I'm saying? Yeah.
Disregard.
Yeah.
Regard.
Yeah, you've cut on that word.
That's my word of the day.
In other words, someone says something to you nasty, and you're like, I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
Disregard that.
Now, again, my logical Joanna says that doesn't mean that sometimes you get constructive criticism and it's actually for good reason. We're not talking about that, right?
No, I love constructive feedback.
Yeah.
I'm into it. And I think I used to take it on a little too much.
Yeah.
Or blame myself too much.
Yeah. The more what I'm getting is that it makes sense to me. The more confident the person is in themselves, the more they are in their own authority. Again, it's not the rah-rah, it's being in their own authority. The more able they'll take on constructive criticism because they're not coming from the space of lack. When someone feels insecure and they feel a negative comment, it automatically implies to them that that person is seeing their lack because they believe it. So it's going to be jarring to the ego.
That really clicked for me, what you just said there.
Yeah.
Regulating my nervous system came to mind. Like, I've had to work on that.
Yeah. Like I said,
me. That helps me get into my authority.
Yeah, I'm just asking, they're giving me a visual of like bringing back our energies, because normally our energy is all over the place.
Yes.
And just taking a deep breath, imagining bringing our energy back into our center and just being like within this column of light, like just being in a column of energy and just pulling all the energy back to ourselves. Because we're not even aware of how much of energy we give away to other people.
Right.
Right? When someone says something nasty to you and you're holding onto it, you're giving that energy.
Right.
You're giving that energy, right? Number 5, be proud of yourself. You have accomplished a lot. And I said, well, I'm sure many people are not going to agree with that. And what they said was, all you have to do is look at all the accomplishments you've had in your life. And you've had many, 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 many accomplishments. And realize that you are part of co-creating that. Which means if you can co-create, then you can co-create forward in the future, perhaps in a different way. So it's recognizing that we have power to change. You can accomplish pretty much anything you put your mind to. That made sense to me, right? So that's my little list of the things that we could actually do to become more empowered. Again, we can't really give our power away because we are it. Like, we're our energy. It's like without power, there is no you, right? It's our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions. So was there ever a time where you felt very disempowered and you look back at your life and you said, wow, if I only knew that or that, I wouldn't have to go through a struggle or something like that? Does something come to mind for you?
Yeah, I've learned. So I have a Libra moon. So for you astrology buffs out there, people with Libra moons, we made a soul agreement to learn about relationships and to learn everything we need to know about life from relationships. When I have felt most disempowered, like friendship groups where I'm ganged up on and all that, like there's so many examples. And I don't retell my victim stories, do I?
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I am the survivor of being the target of the smear campaign and then everybody joining in on the circus, right?
Yeah.
So I'm very disempowered, but I know now how to step into my authority. When I feel that again, or if I feel like I'm getting ganged up on, or if I know there's been a smear campaign, or if I know there's been gossip about me, I know how to handle myself now. I know how to give my power away to that situation anymore.
I love what you're saying, because one of the things that came earlier was when we are in our own power, it doesn't prevent things from happening. It doesn't prevent life from being life.
Right.
It's just when we are in an empowered state, we can deal with anything that life has to offer in a different, more empowered way.
Yes.
So just because we're saying, you can be whatever you want, but I suspect you want to feel more empowered. Feeling and being empowered doesn't mean that you're not going to have to go through some trials and tribulations. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means you're going to show up to that experience in a much more empowered way. Of course, we know the power of your mind is how we create our life. So showing up to a situation that would have basically put you on your knees before, now showing up and saying to yourself, I'm just going to deal with it differently. I'm just going to speak my truth this time and see what happens. And for those who have not been using their voices a lot, and they told me to wear blue today specifically. They said, wear blue. So maybe one of the other, thank you for reminding me. You said that you don't repeat your victim story. I think that's a huge point, because when you don't repeat your victim story, you're not feeding that story your energy. It's like you stop feeding a plant when it's going to eventually die because it's not getting any water, any nutrients. And the client I actually had before, I saw how she was stuck in her victim story because she kept saying, well, that's my programming. And I said, change it now. Decide that you want to have a different experience, because we often want a different experience, but we're stuck in our old programming.
Sure.
So,
this is powerful.
Yes.
just focus on what you're saying. Our words are powerful. That's why they call it spelling.
Yes, words are spells, whether they're said out loud or in your own mind. Words are spells.
Yes.
Here's a simple example. When someone says, I love you, you want to melt. When someone says, I hate you, completely different feeling, right? Words, energy.
Change one word.
Yeah. So one of the things we might want to just really put out there, become mindful of how you talk to yourself. Become mindful of how you talk to yourself. If you tear yourself down over and over again for a mistake that happened years and years ago, then you are disempowering yourself each and every day using your own power. How crazy is that?
Right. And we all do it until we're doing it.
Exactly. It's the realization of when we're doing something unconsciously that then becomes conscious, then we have the power to change it. Right? I love this stuff.
I love this stuff, Joanna.
That went by so fast. Okay, guys, this is it. I hope you enjoyed it.
I loved it.
We will see you in the next episode. Take care of yourself.
Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And please share this fab convo with someone who you love.